Sunday, just right for a backyard barbecue. Everyone's having a great time. The grill's fired up, the drinks are flowing, the people are playing in the pool. And the subject of our legend is watching the festivities while enjoying his fair share of beverages. The only reason he bothers to move is to stroll over to the cooler now and then for another cold one. After having knocked back a few, he feels the inevitable call of nature. Meandering through the party, he looks for the restroom. But when he reaches it, there's standing room only. It looks like a long wait, and to be honest, he's not sure he can hold out. He tries the back route to the master bedroom, but even there, he's got to take a number. Now what? The situation is becoming urgent. He goes back outside and looks around for a convenient bush to hide behind. But he just can't find any privacy. Now he's desperate and isn't sure what he's going to do. Searching for an answer, he comes up with an obvious, if rather offensive, solution. He'll just slip into one end of the pool, let nature take its course, and no one will be the wiser. He figures others are doing it anyway, and it's a chlorinated pool. No big deal. So he slips into the water, doing his best not to be noticed. He wades over to an uninhabited corner of the pool, puts on his most innocent expression, and lets go. It's a welcome wave of relief. But in short order, he realizes something. It seems like everyone else at the party is looking at him, and he can't understand why. How could they know? One look down gives him the answer. The water around him is turning bright red. At first he panics. What's happening to him? Was it something he ate? Shaken, he clambers out of the pool and is instantly confronted by the host of the party who isn't laughing. He takes our man aside and explains that the color in the pool is from a chemical additive in the water. An additive created to detect the presence of urine.
Oh my God, I am so sorry.
Totally embarrassed, there's not much to do except excuse himself from the party and make a humiliating exit. But is there really a chemical additive that reveals the presence of urine? Or is this story all wet?
This particular urban legend is probably repeated because the behavior itself is repetitive. A child of 2 would probably behave this way in a swimming pool regardless of the time in our culture. So it's a useful tool that's probably passed on from generation to generation. I think for a child, it would have a lot of power because it works not only on fear but also shame. Even as adults, we're afraid to be caught as we are, as a contaminating being of some sort.
So it's an urban legend with a social function. Because of that, pool maintenance professionals constantly run into the story in their work.
The first time I heard the urban legend of the famous red dye was, I was probably 10 years old and went swimming in a public pool for the very first time. My mom said, you know, if you pee in the public pool, everybody we know is gonna know it. So I was just scared to death because I knew there was this thing, and I didn't pee in the pool that day. Even to this day, as long as I've been in this business, not a month will go by in the summertime that I don't get a call from some parent who wants to purchase the pool urine detecting kit.
But does such a kit exist? We know there are tests for other substances commonly found in swimming pools. One is to measure the level of chlorine, a common pool sanitizer.
Pool technicians use a chemical called orthotolidine. It's a chlorine indicator where you drop a certain amount of drops into a vial of pool water, and depending on what color it turns, it tells you what the reading is for chlorine.
So there is a color test for the presence of chlorine, suggesting the legend could be true. Other tests done by city governments routinely detect impurities in drinking water that could be hazardous to the public health. And chemical tests used in crime detection go beyond even this.
There's several chemical color tests that we use that allow us to detect various biological fluids.
For semen, if we're trying to detect semen, there's a test that's known as acid phosphatase. When we're analyzing for the presence of urine, there's a test that we use known as creatinine.
And for detecting blood from a crime scene, there is the luminol test. A hazardous materials suit is worn because luminol is a carcinogenic chemical. It's sprayed throughout the area where the criminal activity was suspected. Once the kitchen is cleared, it's exposed to ultraviolet light. And there on the floor, the luminol glows with the telltale sign of spilled blood. All of which begs the question, if such chemicals can test for fluids you can't even see, isn't there a colored dye that might red flag a swimmer with no bladder control? The answer is no.
It would be impossible to test for all the things that come off a human's body when they go swimming in a swimming pool. Hair, spray, deodorant, sweat, urine, belly button lint. None of these things can be tested for.
And that's probably a good thing, lest every swimming pool become a kaleidoscope of color.
This particular urban legend taps into a fear of exposure. Not so much contamination, because in fact it would be others who would be contaminated, but in fact an exposure of a behavior that affects others. The emotion beyond fear can also be succinctly described as shame, because everyone would be able to see the act, or evidence of the act.
So, fear of embarrassment keeps the legend alive, even if it's only wishful thinking.
I've been in this business for 30 years, and I can tell you right now, you cannot test for urine in swimming pools. The famous red dye does not exist, but people still chase after it.
And thank goodness, children of all ages still believe in it. The victim of this story leaves the scene sopping wet, but the victim of our next account is left high and dry. True or false? One of the James Bond girls was actually a man. The answer, when we return.
All new episodes guaranteed to